So I'll share the conversation I have with Claude because I
Yeah.
didn't really do that until last night. I'll just put that in the chat. Um, and so basically, I hopped into Claude and said, "Hey, take a look around." I because I have a vague understanding of the of of how the pieces fit together. I knew that, um, and I have dug into the code a little bit, but like I said, it's not my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
And this was a really great place for me to say to Claude, "Hey, take a look at Objective C and GCC and libobc2, and let me know how do we bring GCC up to snuff." Um, and I read through it, and I was actually pretty impressed. And you came back and said that you agreed with Claude's interpretation of this, and it seems like there's well, one of the things that really annoys me about Claude, if you scroll down to the bottom of this, it's got time estimates for all of this stuff,
Yeah.
which is, I always find it hilarious. But these things, they emulate software people in the worst possible way, and end up being very accurate. It broke thing. I tend, when I'm looking at a big thing like this, I tend to tell it, break it down into iterative phases, tell me what the checkpoints are, stuff like that. And it sort of calls out that actually one of the issues is that GCC has a runtime called GNU Step 1.9, but doesn't actually enable it. So that was a step 0 that I wasn't even aware of. And then there was non-fragile IVAR instance variables, and then of course there's block support and stuff like that. One of the cool things that I learned, and this is one of the things that I love about using Claude for code that I'm not familiar with. Like I said, I built GCC and stuff, but I'm not really deep into the community. And so I asked at some point, like, how do we test this stuff without, and it introduced me to this thing called Deja GNU. Is really neat. If you're looking,
Yeah. So just before we go into that, we've
go
gone from the history to the details without explaining what the goal was. So
right,
the
yes.
so GCC kind of Objective-C support is basically frozen in time at pretty much the point where Apple stopped creating patches, because somebody on the GCC community was trying their best to either merge those patches in or to make the same behavior, and they had their own Objective-C runtime library, which is the thing that actually looks up or creates classes and sends messages to objects and all that kind of stuff. And that is not quite compatible with the way that the Next/Apple Objective-C runtime library works, because it is designed to be more portable. So what it does is just say it lets you look up a method and says, here's the function you call, and then the client code calls that function, and that means that you don't care what the ABI of the platform is. Whereas Objective-C message send, which the next version uses, is a trampoline. It jumps into the target function, so you need to know where all of the parameters go on the registers and all that kind of stuff for any collection of parameters or types or return values or whatever. So modern Objective-C has a bunch of features that aren't available in GCC, and there's a split across the runtime library and the compiler front end. And your goal was, can we make GCC support a modern Objective-C language? And then that's the conversation that you had with Claude. That's the one that you've linked and
yeah,